All right, so we'll talk about king and pawn endgames this time.
Okay, cool.
I'm a big fan of difficult king and pawn endgames.
I
don't know if
love
you knew that
those.
about me.
No.
Yeah, I love a good king and pawn
Oh,
endgame.
I'm very interested in them. I'm just not good at them.
It takes a lot of calculation, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
One would think that king and pawn endgames would be easy to master, since all of the pieces have been traded. Doesn't the lack of mutual armies make things far less complicated? The answer is a resounding no. In fact, many king and pawn endgames are so complex they can even boggle the minds of the world's elite players. Due to this complexity, masters know that entering into any king and pawn endgame is an all or nothing decision. That's true. Leaping into one is perfectly okay, and often the only way to win or draw a game. But make sure you have a firm handle on the resulting position before doing so. And I would like to add that a lot of times people, when they're defending, they'll accept a king and pawn endgame thinking it's a safer way to draw when it's actually riskier.
Mm-hmm.
You know, king and pawn
Mm-hmm.
endgames are like a rook endgame is usually easier to draw than a king and pawn endgame.
Is it? Do you think it's just because people there's less on the board, so people are lulled into a false sense of it's simpler and
I don't know
easier?
exactly why.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like people, they think when the position's simpler, it's easier to play.
Right, right.
Which is generally true. But king and pawn endgames are extremely difficult.
What page are you on? XQS was asking.
374.
374. Hey, Raj. Hey, Pietro. Hey, Marquette Sands. We are the elitist. We're the best. If you're here, you're
Yes.
the elitist and the best.
The following examples are meant to do two things. One, teach you to appreciate their beauty. And two, act as a warning. And he goes on and on. All right, let's just look at the first example. It's actually going to be in a middle game first.
Mhm.
But I sort of assume they'll trade some stuff. This is the game Shirov against Grishuk from 2000. The distant future, the year 2000. This. Then I got a queen and another queen. Okay, this looks right. Just make sure. So it looks like black's an exchange down. It's black to play. So Grishuk to move. This isn't even close to a king and pawn endgame, which is true. But it turns out that one could occur by force after black's sacrificial move. Bishop g4. Yeah, I bet you didn't expect that one.
Mm-mm.
Because I didn't. Takes. After pondering the upcoming king and pawn endgame, Shirov decided on queen b7 instead in the game. And ended up winning. Though this queen move didn't give him any advantage whatsoever. It turns out that HG wins by force. But Shirov, as he admits, took him 3 years and computer assistance to finally prove that it wins.
So HG was the right move.
Right.
I got confused for a second. Hey, Hakeem. Oh,
Yeah.
Quarterback COVID.
Cam Newton. I heard of him. I didn't know he played for the Patriots, though. So yeah, HG wins by force, but it took Shirov 3 years and computer assistance to prove that it wins.
Okay.
During the game, he played queen b7 because he somehow didn't figure out. That's the thing that took him 3 years to figure out over the board.
Yeah, okay.
So HG wins. Queen takes. Rook f1. f3. Queen a2. Check. Check. Now instead of perpetual checking, we can try to win by giving up our rook, since we're up a rook.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Obviously I messed this up. There we go. Yes. In fact, he didn't even take the pawn yet. He played here. That's a better move, yeah. Okay, so now we're in a king and pawn endgame here, which is very easy to imagine Shirov calculated to this position. Although, are all of these moves forced? Well, this is a threat, so that's why you would consider rook f1. Well, wouldn't you consider other rook moves? I don't know. Well, that's forced. Queen a2 was to play here. So yeah, he could calculate this. Definitely. As long as you assume rook f1 in that position. Alright, we've reached the position that Shirov couldn't quite solve during the game. It's clear that White's only hope of winning is to create a pawn mate, a concept we already looked at in part 6. I remember that. To accomplish this, White needs to reach one of the following two positions. This is here, that's there, and this is here. So if it's that position, Shirov can try to win it. If it's black to move. Because then black would play like king e8, and then you'd walk king f5 to e6, and then d7 mate. Oh, we got some bits. 10 bits.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Trying Not to Learn.
Yay, thank you, Trying Not to Learn.
Or he could try this position. The king is on d5. This is happening. And that's there. This position would win if it's white to move. Alright, so let's see how the game could continue. e7 check. King e8. Now here's an interesting move. King h2 exclam. A key triangulation maneuver. The straightforward king f3 here. This is the position we talked about, but we need it to be black's turn. Unfortunately, it's white's turn.
Remind me why we need it to be black's turn. Yeah, I haven't done the front page yet. That's at 4 Eastern time, a little bit over an hour.
The reason that it needs to be black's turn is, let's pretend it's black's turn.
Okay.
We can't move at these pawns. That move is not acceptable.
Okay.
So he'd go here. That's the only reasonable move. Any other king move would allow me to queen.
Right, okay.
So you'd go here if it was your turn.
Mm-hmm.
I'd go there. Then if you try to queen, I mate you. Checkmate.
Oh, yeah, okay.
However, it's white's turn, so if white starts to do that, black will queen and you won't mate me. So white can't try to checkmate in this case.
Oh, I see.
So this is actually a draw. So king h2 is kind of a tricky move. King f7. You got it, Trying Not to Learn.
Yeah, I agree with that, Try Not to Learn. I'm going to go back over the streams, but I might get the book out too. Hey, Mike Anderson.
If h4, here, look at what we did. Now it's black's turn. How lucky is that? Black has to go here. It actually even takes this. That makes sense. You might as well do that, actually. Because you can still get this mate.
Right.
Mate.
You don't feel so elite now, Marquette?
Well, after you learn about this, then you'll be an elite.
I know, this is hard stuff.
Oh. Didn't mean to go that far. So king h2. So yeah, h4 will get into that position where black to play loses. So king f7. King g2 exclam. And now black's in Zugzwang. Incredibly. This seemingly innocuous move leaves black in Zugzwang. We've already seen that h4 is going to lose, like the same way we just saw. And black loses. However, a king move or pushing a pawn to g4 will allow the second key position that we talked about. I'll show it here. 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 And king e5. Now we're threatening king e6, which would win. This is mate. So you have to play king f7. But now we can actually run over to the Q side.
Oh, yeah.
We could try to go here and promote our pawn. Like this. Now we have to go g2. If we play king, let me promote this variation, make it a little easier for me. We go king here. That's not going to work. We check him, go there, queen with check, then we easily stop this pawn. And that's hopeless, of course. So you have to go g2, even though that actually also loses. Here, queen, at least both sides get to queen here. But white wins. After king g7, queen e5 check, exclam. Great square for the queen, a centralizing square for the queen. King c7. This is a great square for the queen also because it stops the checks on this diagonal. So we're just going to push our pawn, and you actually can't stop me from queening. There's no way. Also, this own pawn is like treasonous. He can't go over here either. Kind of funny how that works out. So white wins even this. Oh, this is a little tougher. This is the best defense, but still loses for black. So the moral of the story is that this king and pawn endgame was actually winning, you know, when we got here. But who's going to figure that out over the board, right? Not even Shirov, who can calculate more than everybody in the chat put together, and me and you, all put together. So very tough stuff. But if you understand what we figured out, where in this position, if it's black to play, it's a loss, that could help you get there. But even still, figuring that out and understanding that is difficult in and of itself. And then even if you do figure that out, you have to play like king h2 here, and then you have to play king g2, and then he's in 6-5.
So you don't. So the Shirov and other grandmasters, you don't think would be able to figure all this out over the board?
If they did, it would be incredible.
Okay.
You know?
But some of them may have studied it beforehand, maybe.
Well, they wouldn't study this exact position, and you can only figure out this exact position if you have this exact position.
Okay.
You can't use like general knowledge. You have to just calculate.
Okay.
That's all. That's the only thing you can do. Like, there's no way they studied a position like this. This is the position. It just occurred. But I guess, you know, a super elite player could theoretically figure that out. But, you know, it'd be very difficult. Yeah. Especially from back here.
Right, yeah.
That'd be crazy.
From back there, yeah, that's great. I just meant once.
But yeah, even here, I mean, that would be very tough to figure all that out. You'd have to figure out the zugzwang position. Right. And then also figure out you can triangulate. You know, and you're not really generally assuming that's the way to win.
Right.
You know, you're if that wins, it's like you just looked at every legal move and and you won that way. You know, it's not like that's normal stuff. So, hello Shirov, if you're watching now. Yes. But yeah, like he said, Shirov analyzed this for years with an engine,
right, that's
and
true.
Finally figured it out. So
that's true.
It's not very easy to figure it out. So this game might seem unfathomable to some. But the basic ideas like the pawn mate and queening with check are easy to grasp. Our next example is even more outrageous. Dang, that example was pretty outrageous. Finally, it's just going to be all pawns.
What does he mean by outrageous though? Like, I mean, just hard or?
I guess.
Hey, K2 Hegemon.
This is Martz against Benko. I don't know who Martz is. Black to play. 1973. Black
Yay.
is. Oh, what did we get?
Got a raid.
Nice.
Thank you, Jim's Chess.
Jim's Chess.
Yay.
Give me a little shout out.
Yeah, nice to meet you. I don't think I've made your acquaintance yet. But thank you for that raid. Yay. Welcome, Jim's Chess people.
Currently playing chess. So, here Benko with black is a pawn up, and it's his turn. So how hard could this be, right?
Hey, dancing little penguin. I know. Seems like it would be winnable.
Well, white's king's pretty good, though.
That's true.
We'll follow Benko's comments from his book, Pal Banco, My Life, Games, and Compositions, which he already quoted this book earlier. Here's what he has to say. So we find ourselves in an interesting king and pawn endgame. This kind of endgame rarely occurs in modern tournaments, so I was delighted to get the chance to play such a position. Here, the game was adjourned, and I had to seal my move. Do you know about sealed moves?
Yeah.
All right, just wondering.
Yeah. I know that was a long time ago. Yeah, I've read about that.
Yeah, so a quick calculation convinced me that king takes c5 is a blunder. Let's take a look at this variation. Takes. Here. b5. Here. There. This is a good idea whenever this situation happens a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The king is like taking these pawns, and then he's going to have a passed pawn. You play h5, that makes him waste a tempo.
Right, yeah.
Because you spent one move, and he's going to have to spend two.
Right, yeah.
And then even another one to get out of the way, which he would have already had to spend that move to get out of the way anyway. h5, king g6, king b4, takes, king g6 again, c4, h5 with a draw. See, I was like, this is h4, and this is not a draw. But it's because I messed up at the beginning, as usual. This should be here. Yeah, see, this position wouldn't be a draw, because we queen first. And we actually get this scenario where if these pawns were gone, this would be a draw. Because it's a rook pawn. But it's not, these pawns aren't gone, so you could just go sack our queen for that pawn and then win. But it's because in this position, the pawn, I should have put it here. I just messed it up, as usual. There we go. So then in that variation, the pawn is on the other square. Like this. Now this is a draw. We'll both queen at the same time. Queen, queen. Although black's a little better, I guess, but it should be a draw. So this is what Banco calculated in this position. Let's see what else. I must admit that in the little time I had left, my first plan was king e4. It's probably what I would play. King f7 takes h5 with an easy win. Also winning after king e4 is king d6, a5. Seems like a weird move to me, but what do I know? Oh, I get it. So now if you take here, takes, you can't take the a pawn. Classic Banco there. King b6 instead. Here, do you know why he played g6 in this variation? g6, then h6, then g5. Why play g6 first?
Well, because then they'll get a passed pawn. Like if tell me if you do h6 instead of g6.
Right. I mean, he wants to make this pawn break.
Right.
So why doesn't he just play h6 g5? Why does he play g6 h6 g5? Why did he waste a tempo like that?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, Silman doesn't even tell us. Because this is Banco's quotes, and Banco already knows, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, Patrick's got it. If h6, h5, the deep freeze.
Oh, well, that's what I meant. That they would, if you push the g6, they would have a passed pawn. That's what I didn't know it was called the deep freeze. I forgot that.
Who has a passed pawn?
If you push g6, if you go g6, then they take, and then there are two squares from queening.
Oh, you mean after h6, h5.
Right.
Yeah, but you have to tell me white plays h5. You have to tell me that. You didn't.
I know, I did. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I
Right.
didn't explain it right. But you asked me why they played that. I said because they'll get a passed pawn.
But they don't get a passed pawn here unless you give
Right.
them a passed pawn on purpose.
Yeah, that's what I meant
Right.
was they couldn't really make a pawn break without giving white. Yeah,
But yeah, h5 is the reason why.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I saw
So
that.
g6 is the move. Sorry, g6, a3, h6. b4, ab, ab. I assume g5, but let's turn the page. Oh, he actually plays king c4. And then king b5 exclam. Ah, this is winning. This is an easy win now. White can't do anything, you just play g5 and queen time.
Mm-hmm.
Really nice by Benko. So these variations both won for Benko after king e4. However...
Was there something else that the white king could have done there, or no?
When?
Go back.
Like here?
Yeah.
After king c4?
Yeah.
Well, no. I mean, you have to take the pawn so you can make a pass pawn. Otherwise, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, okay.
I guess we could try b5. No, I'll take it, and you can't take this because I take there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not going to work.
Yeah, and plus you're going to queen over
Yeah,
it, so.
queen all over the place. Queen on b file, queen on g file. So at first blush, this looks like it wins. But after king e4, Benko noticed b4, creating some difficulties. h5 exclam, a4 exclam. Okay, now we're really getting into the meat of this position here. So black, here are three variations we can look at. King d4. This aims to punish a4 because I can, like, your pawns are just ripe for the picking now when you play a4. I can take them very easily and push my pawn. As, like, if your pawn is still on a2, I'd have to go all the way down there and then push my pawn. So here you're just lining them up for me, like Pac-Man over here. King d6, king c4, king c7, king b4, king b7, king c5, king a7. If a5 question mark, king d6, king c7, g6 exclam. Nice. Forcing the king here is the only legal move. And then we can push our pawn and win. If you play here without g6, then they'll go here.
Oh, yeah.
So we play g6, he has to go here, then we push our pawn. Now he's screwed here, and we just queen. Very nice variation.
Yeah, that's real nice. Man.
I love that one, yeah. So
good.
instead, king a7, king b4, king b6, takes, draw. Certainly. I mean, if anybody's going to win here, it's white.
Right.
But not really, because we can get to this square. By the time he goes and takes our pawns, we can go over there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just to take here. Then he'd have to go all the way back to stop us. 7, 8. So 5 is less than 8. So king d4 in this position is a draw by 4s, if white plays accurately there. So let's try king f4 in this position then. b5 exclam, g5, takes. Now for something you might not expect, b6 exclam. So the idea is if you just push your pawn, I'll go take your b pawn and then queen. By the way, if a5 to play a6, black would play a6. Although that's not worse for white. White can still play b6, I guess. Or maybe even take and go here. But anyways, b6 is the main variation he gives here. A, B, C, B. In this way, black saves the tempo by taking instead of pushing. When you push, then white moves. If you take, then white has to take back, then black moves. H4, A5. This isn't what black wants at all. I mean, he's going to go here, and then he'll queen. Or if you ignore it, he'll queen. Or like that. However, he actually says that after b6, A5 is exclam. I would think that this still could draw, though. Let's take a look at the variation. Here, there. Give me that. Yeah, I would assume this draws. Because you're queening already. But we can try this. And here. All right, so we're up a pawn.
Mm-hmm.
And king's pretty bad. So that's good. And our pawns are all protected, so that looks pretty safe. However, white can still force a draw here. With queen b6 exclam. Going for a little stalemate trick. Nice. So obviously we won't take it. We'll move our queen to protect our pawns. And now he can try to take our other pawn. Check. Winning the c-pawn and drawing the game. Tough stuff. All right, let's go all the way back to this position where we tried king d4 and we tried king f4. And they both ended up drawing after some long calculations. The winning move here for black, well, it might not be winning actually. The best move for black is a6 exclam. Yes. a5 exclam. Okay, it's a very strange move in my opinion, so we'll have to keep looking to see why. I would just assume black is going to win here, but I didn't calculate anything, so, reading the book here. Takes. And a strange position has come about. Here's what Benko has to say. White's pawn only stands on the 6th rank, which usually means it's about time to resign. But despite this, black has to show a bit of care if he wants to reel in the point. The correct move is queen h7 check. If queen b1 question mark, that looks like a good move. A7. Check. King c7. Don't go taking this pawn. Double question mark. Because we'll check and then we'll put our queen here. Then we'll win. As we've seen that idea earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So king c7 avoids that defense. Sorry. Also bad is king c8. That'll also lose. Because after takes queen, we get to check and take your queen. Because your king was on c8. Then we'll win.
Oh, yeah. Man.
A lot of details. That's where the devil is. Queen a5 check. Fork. Black doesn't have time to take this pawn. Yeah, black doesn't have time to take the pawn because we'll queen. And so there's actually no way to win this position. If we check, we'll just move away. We have to be sure to still avoid that same variation from before.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as we avoid them trading the queens, then white won't lose, is the point. All right, so queen b1 and taking the b pawn doesn't win. Queen h7 check does win. King b8, queen g8 check, king b7, queen f7 check. Let's make our way in. But now we get to take the pawn with check. Or we get to check and take the pawn. This is a whole tempo faster than playing queen b1 then taking. Like we did in the other variation. Because now he doesn't get to push his pawn right now. He has to move his king. So this wins. So the position after a6 here, this is what Benko says. The position after a6 is full of interesting variations. Here's what, so that variation that we gave, was Silman's analysis. Here's what Benko has to say about it. a5 exclam. He gives king d4. See, Silman says king f4, and that does win with some, little techniques there that we saw. King d4, king f5, king c4, king g6. Takes king g7 exclam, king c5 exclam. He's giving these exclams. Here. Don't want to go here because then you'll get queen with check. You want to avoid that if at all possible. King g4, c4, h5. Queen, where black should win. After considering all this, I came to the conclusion I must find an easier solution. He calculated all this during the game? I find that hard to believe. Anyways, the move Benko found was... Let me make sure this is the right position for the move. Yeah, give me a second here to figure out what's going on here.
That's fine. I gotta fix the monitor.
Yeah, it is here. All right, after considering all this, Benko played the move here, g6 exclam, double exclam. There followed king f6, king e4 exclam, king f4, king h6, king h7. So he's hoping that he'll take and take, but instead g5. Exclam. And this is, by the way, the same as if white took here, he would play g5. Instead, white played this. It's like kind of a tricky move. And then after takes, he's hoping takes. But instead, we'll just play g5, same position in this case. This is the same as if he took here first, then here takes it, same position. g5 exclam, getting to this position, which is apparently winning. It looks pretty winning. Definitely. All these moves seem pretty normal. And white resigns. Yeah. Because we have to go to the b file to queen our pawn, but then probably here to protect the pawn. Mm-hmm. But then we'll even queen with check to make it extra easy.
Yeah.
And we can sneak in front probably with some checks too. I don't know about you, but I have two thoughts when I look at this endgame. One is, it's very beautiful. The other is, my God, I would never have figured any of this out over the board. That's true. The message should be clear. Never enter a king and pawn endgame lightly. Yeah.
Hey, Swag God 95.
Transpositions into a pawn endgame often marks the final stage of an opponent's demise. However, masters have learned to be very wary of king and pawn endgames, since strange, often unforeseen complications can turn an easy win into a draw or even a loss. Let's look at a game from 1951. Aronin, not to be confused with Aronian, because Aronian wasn't alive in 1951, obviously. Aronin has white against Smyslov. I've already seen a couple Smyslov games here in this book. A couple rooks, even a minor piece or two. Black is not going to have a great bishop here. Hard to believe Smyslov would let his bishop be that bad, huh? But yeah.
It's a sad bishop.
It's a sad world. And white to move. Wow, this looks terrible. Okay, let me make sure I set it up right, because at one time I did it wrong. Okay, but this is right. White to move. Most experienced masters would note the possibility of entering an apparently winning king and pawn endgame. With what move? How can white force a king and pawn endgame?
Let's see. You could go rook g8.
Yeah, rook g8 would force a king and pawn endgame.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. But why would you, anyways, why would you trade the knight for the bishop? This knight is the best piece ever. That's terrible. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense, logically speaking, to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And also, by the way, white's rook is pretty good, too.
Yeah.
And, black's rook's, okay, but it's not as active as white's. So one would expect such a strong player as a Ronin to just win this position and not go into a king and pawn endgame.
Right.
Just win it because he's winning positionally.
Mm-hmm.
Or, like, at least tidy up the position a bit first, like move his king up and, do other stuff that he could improve, and then rook g8. However, he does play rook g8. Question mark. Smyslov attacks the rook and then takes. White completely missed black's brilliant defensive trap. It's easy to miss. But still, why would you go into something that might turn complex when simple moves keep the win in hand? Even if he goes back to b8, for example, he's still winning. Like this. Here's a variation he gives. C pawn's not going anywhere, so you could just play king e2 even. Stop the counterplay of rook d2. And he's going to win the pawn and eventually win the game. He's just up material with no counterplay for black. In fact, if white was down material, white would have compensation. White's got the material and the compensation. So instead he stupidly took. And his idea is, I'll just play g4. Good idea. This was white's idea. It seems to end all kingside counterplay for black. And then white can just win on the queen side, taking all these pawns. So this does seem like a win. Because, if you can't get any counterplay with black on the king side, he's just going to win on the queen side. And if you take en passant, which is what he did, after here, now it seems like white's going to win by going here. And then if you go and defend, I'll go there and make a pass pawn on the other side of the board. So it seems like Smyslov is going to lose and that Aronin is actually a genius. Until g4 double exclam. Yes. A great move. Now, obviously, if he takes, we can try to step up and win the pawn. But you wouldn't do that. You would just go h4 and give me a protected pass pawn, right? Anybody who knows anything about king and pawn endgames knows protected pass pawn is usually just a win. Because the other side's king has to babysit the pawn all day.
Mm-hmm.
But white's not going to win this. c5 exclam. An important move that deprives the king of the d4 square in the future. King e2. King h7 exclam. King h6 exclam. Black avoids the g6 square, since in tactical lines that follow, when black plays f6, he doesn't want takes to be check. He just wants white to take, and then he'll push his pawn, saving a tempo.
Oh, I see.
Aronin plays c3. If king c4, that actually loses in a surprise turn of events. f5. Takes. See, now takes isn't check, because he played king h7 and stayed away from g6. For the record, it's already too late to defend with this move because of f4. Well, this already looked like this didn't work out great for white, right? It's got two connected passers. We go here, we go like this. We learned this idea earlier. When they're two apart, they don't defend each other.
Oh, yeah.
When there's only one apart, then you can't attack it from the side. But here we can attack from the side. So black just wins the pawn, as we already learned. And because he has an extra pawn, he's going to win. So here, if you take, though, e4, the king can't approach the pawn, which is pretty funny. c3. And white's done for. White's going to eventually have to move his king once he runs out of moves. And then we'll push our pawn. You go king somewhere. Those are the only legal king moves. You could do this first or whatever. You can give up all your pawns if you really want. But then now you're going to have to move your king and lose. Anyways, you gave up all your pawns, so you're going to lose anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So Smyslov's pretty good. Who would have thought? So instead of playing king c4 in this position, after king h6, king c4 even loses to f5. He plays c3. a5, cb, ab. And they even agreed to a draw here. We already saw that this isn't going to help because of f5. And he could play something like king e2, but I mean, how are you going to win now? You just play king h7. Just don't go to g6, right? Keep our king not on g6. And we can always play f5 and don't have to worry about e takes f check. We can just play f5 takes and then e4. White can't make any progress. Great defense by Smyslov. Wow. Wouldn't have expected g4 to be the move. And then he doesn't go to g6. He purposefully avoids it.
Mm-hmm.
Very deep understanding and calculation. But I guess that's why he was world champion, huh?
Yeah.
Are you convinced yet? And almost any king and pawn endgame might turn out to be a minefield that you should think twice before walking through. Yes, no. Let's look at a game won by Jack Peters. He loves Jack Peters, this guy. Transition to the king and pawn endgame was a perfect solution here, but the calculation necessary to prove this is far from easy in an over-the-board situation. He loves to look at Jack Peters games, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, who even is this guy?
He doesn't have a title of any.
International master.
Oh, he is an IM.
Yeah, so they must be friends, huh?
Maybe.
They're both IM friends.
Yeah.
I am friends with IM.
So I couldn't remember. Silman was an IM.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here Peters has black. It's black to move. And he's playing some guy. Let's make sure this is the right position. Easier to set up this time than usual. See, nobody's saying stuff. Good job, Smyslov, if you're watching. R.I.P. Queen and pawn endgames are notoriously difficult. So in the interest of making his life easier, black must consider queen f3. When it's clear that in the ensuing king and pawn endgame, both sides will take each other's pawns, after a deep count, it might seem that each side will promote with the resulting queen and pawn versus queen endgame. Imagine the queens get traded, white takes the f-pawn, we take 2 pawns, then we'll both queen, f-pawn, and b-pawn. So black will have a queen and an a-pawn against a queen. That seems like what it should be. Is that what black wants, though? Because that could be a draw, queen and pawn against queen. Let's see what happens. Queen f3, exclam. This is a dead win. Decision can only be made if black notices a subtle point after the end of a long forcing variation. Takes. White doesn't have much choice because he's going to lose his b pawn now. Like if you run away, I'll just play king takes pawn and take all your pawns. So you actually have to trade. All right. And now, king b5, exclam. Not only getting out of the way of his pawn, which anybody would want to do, but also attempting to prevent this pawn from queening by running it all the way home.
Mm-hmm.
Like the last piggy. Wee, all the way home. f4. Now he has to use his king to help. And white resigns. He can't queen. He can't go here, though, because that's check. Ouch.
Oh, yeah.
I hate when that happens. Dang. Really nice by Mr. Peters there. A lot more simple than the other stuff, but still very nice example there. Such transitions from messy positions to the supposed serenity of a king and pawn endgame can be a blessing or a curse. In the following example, white had to decide whether or not to leap into an unknown king and pawn endgame. Let's see, nobody said anything. Yeah, exactly, Ivysaur. That's what. Well, that is definitely what the IM saw. Peters.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, we're not supposed to see it, obviously.
We could, we could.
Yeah, you could.
I even have an example of my own where I calculated into a king and pawn endgame, and it was a very long calculation, and I won
Hmm.
with only one idea. I spent like 30 minutes before I went into it too.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't know how long Peters thought about that. It could have been
Hmm.
half an hour, like I did. All right, here's a game, some guy against some other guy, unknowns, from 2005. White to move. In this game, White avoided the king and pawn endgame and played knight d7 check. So the real question concerning this position are, is the king and pawn endgame worth considering if they take? And if White doesn't do that, like how he did, he played here,
Hmm.
then who's better and why? So let's look at the king and pawn endgame. Takes. Did I not do legal moves? Oh, I did. It just didn't make the noise for a second. Yeah.
Mm.
Takes, and g4. So this position proves to be pretty interesting. It seems that White's plan of creating a passed e-pawn and h-pawn, and you could go here, you could do that, do both, right? Which would be unstoppable due to their distance from each other, will give her the full point. Apparently White is female. I didn't know. I couldn't tell from the name.
I like the way he says, the way he refers to a win is give the point.
Yeah. d4, h4, not f5 double question mark, because g5 will stop 2 pawns for 1. Sort of like the deep freeze.
I was thinking that.
I'm going to miss Silman's writing when this is done. You're going to miss me when I'm gone. h4, king e7, f5. Once White plays h5 in the next turn or two, if you trade pawns or whatever, Black's going to resign. This is dead lost now. You could create a passed h-pawn and a passed e-pawn. They're too far apart and too far down the board. And these guys are doing nothing. Go here or there. All right, so that's losing. And so is it really this simple? Perhaps not. Perhaps, but perhaps not. After g4, Black can try g5. See, hoping for f5, then we get the scenario, the deep freeze again, with these 3 pawns. A bit of analysis makes it clear that this is a dismal failure. Oh, so this doesn't work. It takes? I couldn't have thought it did work. King e7. If king g7, well, this is pretty tough for Black now. Black has to move. Check. e6. h6. Mainly, etc. Clearly going to win there.
Hey, Pet Serious.
So here after g5, f takes, king e7. h4, d4. If king e6, h5 takes, h6, you actually are in the square, but you can't get in the square because it's illegal. Like, you would be in the square, but it's illegal, so you lose. So d4. Oh, nice. What do we get?
Yay. Hey,
A
Laszlo.
subscription.
Thank you.
Nice. Excited to watch you beat Chess Coach.
Well, I mean, obviously he's going to give me odds.
g6 takes, e6, and we've seen that this is going to win. All right, so these variations were all winning for White. Can Black ever try to play f6 at some point is a question. So let's see. g4 was the last move for White. King e7, h4, f6. Never play that, though. h5. we have a very pleasing pawn structure that guarantees white's success. For example, g5, h6, and as usual, e6, and wins.
Mm-hmm.
Seen this idea like 10 times already.
Yeah.
So how about g4, and then black immediately plays f6, which actually threatens to win. If it's black's turn, black will take and play g5, freezing the pawns again, and black can easily win then. Just take your pawn. So white can try e6, but after king here, you have to play f5, protect your pawn. Then g5 again freezes you. Now we're on to something. Black's drawing these variations at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Let's suppose that white instead takes this pawn. And here. Looks nice for white, but it's actually still a draw. Black's c and d pawns handcuff white's king. White's 4 pawns are stopped by black's king and pawn. Okay, he doesn't give any more analysis, but I want to look at something here. Let's go here.
Mm-hmm.
I assume you'll go here. And then this. It's risky. You know, it might lose even. But I just for fun. Well, you have to go here, right? It's the only reasonable move. Okay, this isn't going to work, so we can go here. But I guess king g6. Yeah, now white's losing even. You can't push any pawns, and I'm going to win with all my passed pawns.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's true that in this position, these 4 pawns are kept stuck by these two. The king and the pawn. And then this king is handcuffed by these guys, as he says. These guys are all the same, so it's a draw.
Right. Hey, John 3:16. For God so loved the world.
So, after 2f6, it seems like we did it, right? We drew with black. However, immediately white can try h4. Exclam. Then this is nice if you remember the variation we just calculated. We couldn't play with these pawns in that other variation. So let's do this first, now that we still can. Fe, king e7, h5, and white wins. The pawns are too far advanced and separated.
Right, by the 2 files.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually looked at this similar position earlier.
Mm-hmm.
If the pawns were further back, it would be a draw. But because they're so far advanced, they can still win. Like if you go here and then here, we do this. This is exactly what we looked at earlier in the book.
I remember that.
At this point, I can see white snapping off the bishop and rushing into this endgame, confident with all these variations that we just looked at that white actually wins. However, we have missed something. After f6, h4, black to move can save himself with an unlikely move. g5. Double exclam. Shocking stuff. Oh, hey, John 3:16. My favorite part of the Bible.
That's why I said for God so loved them.
Oh, I didn't know that. I actually don't know the Bible.
Yeah, that's the one where
Spoiler alert.
he gave his only begotten son or something like that.
Oh, that's nice.
I think that's the one. Or maybe not.
All right, let's look at some variations here. HG, FE, FE. So already doesn't seem like white's going to win now, in my opinion. D4 plays A4. And draw. Yeah, these pawns are not going to win on the king side, obviously. So instead of H takes, we can look at E takes F, but now actually black wins. because now black has too many passed pawns. Okay, so that's easy variation. Let's try h5. That seems like a good move.
Mm-hmm.
G takes f. Now, fe would lose because fe, and then we still have these passed pawns. Protected passed pawn is going to win. Oh, so gf instead of fe. e6. Pretty complicated stuff here.
Mm-hmm.
Check, trying to deflect the king like we've seen white do to
Right.
black several times.
Yeah.
Flip the script. King c2 exclam. This allows white to follow up with queen c8 later. Like imagine we both queen. I could play queen c8. Where if I took the pawn, I couldn't play queen c8 because check takes my queen.
Mm-hmm. I see that.
So f2, h7, queen, queen, check. And now queen c8 wins. Oh, wait. No, wait. Actually, it doesn't win. Because we can check. In fact, if anything, black's going to win the pawn, and even only black has chances to win. But this is a good defense, though. White's like on the defending end at this point.
Hey, Indo Queen.
So that variation was okay for black still. Let's try FG, because we haven't looked at that move yet. And FE. Well, now it looks like black might win. He's got 3 connected passed pawns, yeah. Now we have to imagine how white could win. Or how black could win, rather. If this pawn is here, and the king is in there, in the pocket, like how we've seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And this is here, and then all these pawns are down 1. That position is Zugzwang. Whoever's move it is loses, according to Silman. So let's try to get there. Though he doesn't give a variation to get there. But let's do it. We can do it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Here. There. Like this. We did it. Now, here we made it black to play. Because it's black's turn right now.
Mm-hmm.
So black to move is going to lose. If it was white to play, it's actually pretty easy. King c3, we can go e3. King c2, d4, mainly, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Black to move, it's a little trickier, which it is black to move here. This, here, there. Now it's white to move, so you think, oh, this is now losing, right? Because, we have to go back and let the pawns forward. But actually, we can try to mate him again with king e5. King f6. And mate. Nice.
Mm-hmm. That is real nice.
So
check our time. We're still good, but we have to end probably in about 5 minutes.
Uh-oh.
Because I'm gonna jump on with Coach and coordinate a little bit before we start.
All right. We can return to this position. Turns out that black can indeed achieve a better version of the position when the king was here and the pawns were up.
Mm-hmm.
After king c3, king f7, h5, e4, king d4, we could play a4, g6 check, king g7. Not king f6, g5, king g7, a3, where we're in the position and now black's going to lose. But king g7 immediately. a3, and now king f6. Because after check here, we achieved the position with white to play. And so white loses, like we saw. So it turns out that white can't do more than draw the king and pawn endgame. Once again confirming the old adage, king and pawn endgames are confusing.
Yeah.
But, we can actually analyze it a little more, but we can save it for next time, actually. since you have to do your thing. Because in the game they played this.
Yeah, we can just maybe. Well, it depends. Like, when I'm done with coach, there might be a little bit more time. I'm just not sure. Or when we pick up again, probably makes sense just to do it. Yeah, maybe tomorrow.
Okay.
Maybe restart the example for a quick review.
Definitely.
To get us to the end. Yeah. Sorry, we have to truncate this very last example, but I have to get on with coach in 3 minutes. We still have 3 minutes. But and we just make sure that the layout and everything looks fine before I play him. So that's all.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow, Spencer and I will continue. How much is left in the book?
Let's see. We got several pages left for the king and pawn endgame section. Then we got a knight endgame section. Then we have another endgame, but it's just the king being good in several different endgames.
Yay, we got it. Oh, I'm sorry.
And then we got queen and pawn, and then that's the end of part 8.